Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to do something really exciting. We are completely shattering the stereotypes surrounding extremely high intelligence. If you've ever felt, well, just entirely misunderstood, or if you're kind of fascinated by how the human brain operates at its absolute extremes, you are exactly in the right place. We're going to decode the hidden traits of highly intelligent people, pulling from decades of cognitive psychology research. And I promise you by the end of this, it's going to fundamentally change how you view intelligence. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. When I ask you to just picture a genius or someone with a remarkably high IQ, what pops into your head? For most of us, we automatically picture someone who is, obviously impressive. Like maybe they're constantly confident, maybe they're solving complex math problems out loud, and basically making absolutely sure everyone in the room knows exactly how smart they are. But, and this is the kicker, psychology research tells us a completely different story. The reality? Highly intelligent individuals rarely look the way we expect them to. We typically have this expectation, right? The loud, perfectly confident, maybe even emotionally detached thinker. But the reality is often someone who is quiet, constantly self-doubting, and highly sensitive. Why is that? Well, because a very high IQ doesn't just make a person a little smarter or a little faster. It literally changes the entire way a person processes the world around them. It's a fundamental shift. And that difference shows up in very specific behavioral patterns that we're going to map out today. Section 1. The restless internal engine, a mind that never stops. So highly intelligent minds never truly quiet down, not even during rest. To understand why, we've got to look at the actual wiring of the brain itself. Neuroscientist Rex Young at the University of New Mexico found that higher intelligence is associated with richer connectivity between distant regions of the brain. It's not just that the brain is thinking faster in one isolated area. Actually, scratch that. It's more like it's constantly making connections across a massive, sprawling network of ideas simultaneously, just all the time. And that constant connectivity, that is exactly why turning off and just resting is so incredibly difficult. Now, what's really interesting here is how psychologist Kazmierz categorized this phenomenon. He called it psychomotor overexcitability, such a big term. But basically, for years, people with this trait have been misdiagnosed or misunderstood as just having chronic anxiety. But Dabrowski's concept really validates that this restless internal energy, this intense drive to think without any natural off switch, it's not a malfunction, it's not panic. It's just a highly connected brain doing exactly what it was built to do. And because that engine is always running, it leads to a trait called cognitive flexibility. Highly intelligent people tend to treat their own beliefs as, well, working theories rather than fixed identities. When new contradictory evidence pops up, their brain simply updates the mental model. Changing their minds isn't a threat to their ego, it's just a continuous, honest update process. It kind of proves that the people who absolutely never change their minds, regardless of the evidence, are actually rarely the most intelligent people in the room. But, a restless engine needs constant fuel. Highly intelligent people often have this relentless need for novelty. They habituate and get bored incredibly quickly, which, by the way, totally explains the graveyard of half-finished hobbies sitting in their closets. But this isn't just a bad attitude. It's actually driven by higher baseline dopamine activity in the prefrontal cortex. Their brain's reward system is actively running a constant search for new intellectual challenges. When that challenge disappears, boom, their dopamine drops sharply. So they aren't being ungrateful for routine, they're literally having a physiological response to insufficient stimulation. Section 2. The unseen emotional depth, feeling things deeply. We absolutely need to bust the myth of the cold, rational thinker who's somehow detached from the human experience. There's a quote from a study in the Journal of Intelligence that is completely eye-opening. Higher measured IQ correlates with significantly greater emotional reactivity and depth. Dabrowski called this emotional overexcitability. People with elevated IQs don't feel less. They feel things with intense vulnerability. They are acutely, deeply sensitive to the beauty of art, the weight of moral questions, and the profound injustice in the world. They just happen to be very good at hiding it from us. And this brilliantly illustrates how this deep processing profoundly affects their confidence. We've all heard of the Dunning-Krueger effect, right? Where lower competence produces overconfidence because the person just doesn't know enough to see the complexity of a situation. But consider the other end of the spectrum. Highly intelligent people are incredibly comfortable saying, "I don't know." They have such a precise, detailed map of reality that they can see exactly how much territory remains unexplored. Their hesitation? It's not weakness, it's precision. That deep understanding of complexity also leads to something psychologist Carol Dweck calls complexity awareness. If you've ever wondered why highly intelligent people procrastinate the hardest on the work that actually matters the most, well, this is why. It is not laziness. Before they even start a project, their brain comprehends the full, massive scope of what excellence requires. They experience this agonizing awareness of the gap between their perfect, high-res internal vision and what their external output might actually end up looking like. Psychologist Albert Ellis observed this exact phenomenon. He noted that intelligent individuals frequently hold their own output to completely impossible standards. They treat any gap between their performance and their potential as evidence of fundamental inadequacy. It's a heavy burden to carry, for sure, but it's so important to recognize that this persistent self-doubt is a signature of high intelligence. It is a sign of immense depth, not a sign of fragility. Section 3. The social disconnect. Interaction complexity. So what exactly happens when this complex internal world collides with everyday life? Well, it creates friction. There are 3 profound social realities for people with high IQs. First, they prefer observation over expression. They're gathering massive amounts of data and reading deep social dynamics way before ever opening their mouths. Second, they desperately need solitude as cognitive fuel. And third, they genuinely struggle to find peers who desire the same conversational depth. Often they end up holding back and kind of calibrating themselves down just to fit into a room that simply cannot hold their full depth. And this isn't just anecdotal. The London School of Economics actually found that highly intelligent individuals report lower life satisfaction from frequent social interaction. Now wait, this doesn't mean they're antisocial. What it means is that social interaction is incredibly cognitively expensive for a brain that is analyzing absolutely every single layer of a room. That is exactly why they require stillness. They literally need it to recharge their cognitive systems. Psychologist Leta Hollingworth gave us a truly perfect term for this social friction: stimulus poverty. It's the experience of a mind that cannot find sufficient challenge or depth in its immediate environment. If you've ever been called aloof or distant, take comfort in this concept. It is rarely arrogance. Often, it is just a quiet longing for real conversation, a search for someone who can follow you all the way to the absolute bottom of an idea without needing to turn back. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds. The complexity of belonging, feeling out of sync. Because when you put all of these traits together, it results in a very specific feeling. Cognitive psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi found that individuals with the greatest intellectual capacity almost universally describe their inner lives as the most complex, difficult to explain, and hardest to share. It's this quiet, persistent sense of not quite fitting in. But listen, it is so important to understand that this mild alienation is not a personality disorder. It is a completely predictable result of how their minds operate. So the crucial point is this: having a high IQ isn't just about thinking faster, it is about experiencing the world at a significantly higher level of resolution with very little filter between you and it. When your brain processes more, connects more, and feels more intensely than the everyday environments around you can support, feeling slightly out of sync isn't a flaw. It's not a bug. It's just proof that your mind is processing reality in high definition. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Is extreme intelligence ultimately a gift of high-resolution processing, or is it a burden of quiet isolation? Perhaps it's a bit of both. Look at the traits we've covered today. Which of these hidden traits resonates the most with your own quiet experiences? If this explainer gave language to something you've been carrying for a long time, share this validation with someone who might really need to hear it today. Thanks so much for exploring the human mind with me today on The Explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.